Well, g'day guys, how you going? Welcome back, welcome to the blog. Hope you're all going well. Hope summer holidays are a blast. Getting plenty of rest, plenty of relaxation in, rejuvenating yourselves. Hope that's all going well. And I just want to shout out to everyone around the world. Thanks for listening. It's really been fantastic to see you all on board. And loads of different countries represented, so thanks for that, it's awesome. Today's thought for this week is receiving and giving. Pastor Dave and I was on a trip last Thursday. We went on a trip to Capernwray Bible College. Fantastic place, actually, really amazing setup they have down there, and it was really great. And we got taken out to lunch by the principal, Rob Whitaker, and we got to the cafe, and then not an argument but a debate, I guess, broke out as to who would pay the bill. And Rob was insisting that he pay, and we were insisting that we should pay our way. And I began thinking about this in terms of what the Bible says about giving, because the Bible actually says give freely. In fact, Proverbs actually says giving is really important because then you get more back, which is not the reason you give, but it seems to be something that it's saying in Proverbs there, where it says one person gives freely yet gains more, another withholds unduly but comes to poverty. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that if you are in poverty, it's because you haven't given enough away, but one might look at your giving if you are. It's possible, and it doesn't necessarily mean when you give away you get rich either. Okay, so I just want to walk that middle line of, I want to walk that middle line between that phrase, because you could take that the wrong way. You could suggest that doesn't suggest that you will get rich if you give loads of things away. So I just want to point that out. Anyway, back to the point, giving and receiving. The Bible is full of giving. If you go through, it's give. In fact, the people rejoiced. This is 1 Chronicles 29. It's back, verse 9 says, "The people rejoiced at the willing response of their leaders, for they had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. David the king rejoiced greatly." So, giving is something to rejoice about. It's something to do. Says give with a grateful heart, with a joyful heart, and it's a really important part of the kingdom. And I mean, to be totally fair, Rob and the cafe, he just wanted to bless us and say, let me bless you. And to be totally fair, it was just in the mundane of life. It was just a dinner out. It wasn't anything, it was cafe food. It was good cafe food, and it was great that he could do that for us. But if we had insisted on paying, Rob wouldn't have been able to give. You see, we're almost commanded to give in the Bible, to be generous. But if we don't receive, then nobody can give. We're called to be hospitable, have friends around, have dinner. But if nobody comes around to receive that from us, then we can't do our very calling, what God's asking us to do. See, if we'd blocked Rob from giving, then it's a really important thing that actually to give, people have to receive. So it's a really important thing about giving and receiving. But like I said, that's the mundane of life. How are you at giving in your spiritual life? Because there's a few things to say about that. And Jesus in Matthew 10 verse 8 says, "Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons, freely you have received, freely give." What is that about? Matthew 10, that's about sending out the 12. He sends out a group of guys and he gives them all these instructions on what they should do. And he ends the phrase of instructions with, "Freely you have received, freely give." And that's not necessarily talking about the Spirit. You know, that's from that song again. Desert Song seems to be this song that just keeps coming up in the life of our youth ministry at the moment. It just seems to be this song that is raising into our youth ministry, and it says, "This is my song in the harvest. This is my song in the harvest. I know I've been filled to be emptied again. The seed I've received, I will sow." So that's a good question. Bill Johnson, a preacher from the United States, has a phrase that says, "The Spirit is trapped in believing unbelievers." I think that's pretty harsh, Bill, just if you watch, that's pretty harsh. But, having said that, I don't disagree with him. That what happens is loads of people come into church and they get filled with the Spirit, and then they go home and they don't give it away during the week. Not everyone, but people do. So I guess the challenge to us is are we giving what we're receiving? Not a tenth, but all of what we're receiving. Are we filled to be emptied? Are we receiving the seed and sowing? It's a good question. It's a biblical principle to receive and give. Receive and give. I know of a family in our midst who went through some troubled times and people tried to help them out. I think there was a redundancy, and they tried to get help out, and they received loads of money over the period of time. But then they made this pact, and now they're well and truly out of this place. God really sorted them out. But they made a pact that they could handle receiving if they gave it all away afterwards. So like when they got back up on their feet, that they'd give it all away. It's kind of like that concept of the movie. They're going to pay it forward. Somebody's been generous to me, and then I'm going to take that and say I'm going to hold on to that for a period of time, but when the time is right, I'm going to then give that away and give that to the next person who needs help. And they talked about the immense blessing it was to be able to receive from other people, and how they were blessed by that. But then they were blessed again, double portion of blessing, because then they went on, once they had received, to then give away to the other people around them. Now that was, strictly in terms, that was a money story, but are we doing that in terms of our spiritual life? Are we receiving from God, and are we giving out the Spirit? Are we doing those things that Jesus almost calls us to do? It's almost a command there. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Don't let the Spirit become trapped in you so that it fills you and makes you feel good. Over a time, that won't work. Over a time, it's that thing of, is it trapped in you? Let it out. Let it come out of you. In another thing, we were looking at this last night at Bible Bashes. We were looking at God's light fills us and comes into us and then shines out of us. It's not our light, it's God's light. It's shining out of us. It's actually that the Spirit comes and lives in us. God lives in us, dwells in us, that we are the temple of God, and His light is in us, and it shines out of us to the nations around us. But how are we going at receiving? I want you to think about that. Do you let pride get in your way? Like in that story I was telling of that family, the pride, they talked about how they felt, the pride of actually needing that help, how they felt looked down upon, and all of those things. Isn't that funny? That we feel that way when somebody tries to help us. I think we need to think about that. I think that's my thought for this week. I think, how are you receiving from God? Are you receiving from God? Are you? I know I've talked about this before in our worship session. We had a bit of a worship mashup the other night, and it was really fun. And we talked about God is not a tap that you walk in, you turn, you put a bit in, but He's a waterfall where you stand under the waterfall and God's Spirit just pours in. And it's about us positioning ourselves to be in that place of receiving so that we can give. And quite often we're good at receiving. I think in this world we're pretty good at receiving. Sometimes. But I actually want to go as far to say that if you do not receive, you won't be giving. You ever notice that? People who won't receive things from you tend not to be very generous either. It's almost like this principle that if you're going to live into God, you have to receive. So you have to receive things from people. So you have to receive love to give love. Which is what I think Jesus is on about with the greatest commandment. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. But to be able to love, you need to have received love from God. Love pours in and out. I've laboured the point. I'm probably well over time, so I'll probably call it there. But this week, guys, as you think about this, as you start praying about this, how are you at receiving God's presence? How are you at receiving, that's both His presence and His presence. Like in both senses of the word. How are you at receiving from God, and how are you at pouring out God into your world around you? Are you generous with your money? Are you generous with your love? It's so much more important to be generous with your love than your money. I want to put that out there. So much more important to be generous with your love. Is your emotional bank account zero? You need to receive from God. Because if your emotional bank account's zero, then you've got nothing to give out. Are you taking all the blessings of God, going, yes, fill me, Lord, yes, but not pouring it out into your daily life, into the world around you? Is that you? Pray about that. Talk to God about that. Seek God on that one. Say, do I receive well? Ask Him. Can you tell me? That would be really great. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your summer holidays. And I'll catch you next time in the interweb.